I never believed in fate. Not after everything I'd been through. But standing in that hospital corridor on a Tuesday afternoon in March, listening to myself say words I never thought I'd have to say, I started to wonder if maybe someone was watching out for me after all. I need to cancel Sophie's surgery. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. The receptionist behind the desk looked up at me with those practiced sympathetic eyes, the kind hospital staff develop after seeing too much tragedy. She was young, maybe fresh out of college, with neat blonde hair and pink scrubs covered in cartoon bears. "I'm sorry," she said, even though I knew she'd heard me perfectly. "The surgery scheduled for Friday. Sophie Mitchell. I need to cancel it." My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. I'd perfected the art of not falling apart in public over the past 3 years. Ever since the day I packed everything Sophie and I owned into 2 suitcases and walked out of the apartment I'd shared with Travis, I'd become an expert at holding myself together with nothing but willpower and denial. The receptionist clicked through her computer, her nails making soft tapping sounds that seemed too loud in the quiet hallway. Behind me, a television mounted on the wall played some daytime talk show with the volume low. Somewhere down the hall, a baby was crying. "The procedure for the cardiac ablation?" she asked, still looking at her screen. "Yes." She glanced up at me then, and I saw it, that flash of judgment mixed with pity. She was wondering what kind of mother cancels her daughter's heart surgery. What kind of mother lets her 7-year-old keep living with a condition that makes her faint during PE class, that keeps her up at night with chest pains, that puts her at risk every single day. I could have explained. Could have told her about the insurance company that denied our claim 3 times. About the appeal I lost last week. About the payment plan the hospital offered that would have cost more per month than my rent. About the second job I'd worked for 6 months that still wasn't enough. About the call I'd gotten that morning from my landlord, telling me the rent was going up another $200. But I didn't explain. Because it wouldn't change anything. "I understand this must be difficult," she said, in that careful tone people use when they're trying not to make things worse. "But I have to inform you that if you cancel less than 48 hours before the scheduled procedure, there will be a cancellation fee." I almost laughed. Almost. A cancellation fee for not being able to afford the surgery. The universe had a sick sense of humor. "How much?" $500. I nodded slowly. $500 I also didn't have. $500 I'd have to figure out somehow, on top of everything else. But what choice did I have? The full surgery cost was $42,000. $500 was catastrophic. $42,000 was impossible. "Okay," I said. "Cancel it." She started typing, and I turned away because I couldn't watch her do it. Couldn't watch her erase the one thing that might have given Sophie a normal childhood. A normal life. That's when I saw him. He was sitting in one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs that lined the corridor, about 10 feet away. I don't know how I'd missed him when I walked up, he wasn't the kind of man you missed. Tall, even sitting down I could tell. Dark hair, dark eyes, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. He was holding a coffee cup from the cafeteria downstairs, but he wasn't drinking it. He was just sitting there, completely still, watching me. Not watching. Staring. I looked away quickly, heat crawling up my neck. Great. Someone had witnessed my worst moment. Someone had watched me cancel my daughter's heart surgery while I stood there in my Target clearance jeans and my waitress uniform from Benito's Pizzeria, where I just finished the morning shift before rushing here. I turned back to the receptionist, keeping my voice low. "Is that everything? I'll need you to sign here." She slid a form across the counter, and I signed it without reading it. What did it matter? "And someone from billing will call you about the cancellation fee." "Thank you," I said, though I wasn't sure what I was thanking her for. I walked away fast, my sneakers squeaking slightly on the linoleum floor. I just wanted to get out of there. Wanted to pick Sophie up from my neighbor's apartment and hold her and not think about how I was failing her. How I'd promised her everything would be okay, that the doctors were going to fix her heart, and now I had to go home and tell her we had to wait a little longer. Except we both knew what "a little longer" meant. It meant indefinitely. It meant until I won the lottery or found money growing on trees or married a millionaire, and I was fresh out of prospects for all three. I was halfway to the elevator when I heard footsteps behind me. Quick footsteps, purposeful. I didn't turn around. I'd learned a long time ago not to make eye contact, not to engage. Just keep moving. Excuse me. The voice was deep, with the slightest trace of an accent I couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe. Or Greek. I kept walking. Mississippi. Please. Something in his tone made me stop. Not aggressive or demanding, but urgent. Like this mattered. I turned around. It was the man from the chairs. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw with a hint of stubble, and those eyes, dark and intense and looking at me like I was the only person in the world. He was probably in his mid-30s, and there was something about him that radiated power. Authority. The kind of man who was used to getting what he wanted. I'm sorry, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. Do I know you? No, he glanced back toward the reception desk, then at me. I couldn't help but overhear. Your daughter needs surgery. My chest tightened. Of course he'd heard. Everyone had probably heard. I'd been too tired to care about being discreet. It's fine, I said. It's handled. It didn't sound fine. I bristled at that. I didn't know this man. Didn't know what he wanted or why he was talking to me. And I definitely didn't need his pity. With all due respect, it's none of your business. I turned to leave again, but he stepped slightly to the side, not blocking me exactly, but making it clear he wasn't done talking. How much? He asked. Excuse me. How much is the surgery? I stared at him. Was he serious? Why would you want to know that? Just tell me. There was something in his voice, a command wrapped in a request. The kind of tone that made you answer without meaning to. I hated that. Hated that part of me wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to unload all of it on this stranger who would probably walk away the second he heard the number. $42,000, I said flatly. Give or take. Plus the cancellation fee. Plus the medical bills we still owe from the last time she was here. Plus, I stopped myself. Look, I don't know what this is, but I need to go. What if I paid for it? The words hung in the air between us. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. The TV down the hall was still playing, a commercial for laundry detergent. The baby had stopped crying. Everything felt surreal, like I'd slipped into some alternate dimension. What? The surgery. What if I paid for it? He said it so calmly, like he was offering to buy me a coffee, not offering to pay for a medical procedure that cost more than most people made in a year. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It burst out of me, sharp and slightly hysterical. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the expensive suit, the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than my car, the way he stood like he owned the world. This was either the best con I'd ever seen, or... Why? I asked. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or memory. I have my reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. We stood there in the corridor, me in my stained work uniform that smelled like oregano and pizza dough, him in his $1,000 suit, and I knew I should walk away. Should tell him thanks but no thanks and get in my car and drive home and figure out how to explain everything to Sophie. But I didn't. Because what if he was serious? What if this was real? I don't accept charity, I said, hating how my voice wavered. I don't need saving. I'm not offering charity, he said. I'm offering a chance. For your daughter. You don't know anything about my daughter. I know she needs surgery. I know you love her enough to stand here and cancel it rather than drown in debt you can't pay. I know, he paused, his jaw tightening. I know what it's like to feel helpless. There was something raw in his voice that made my throat tight. This wasn't pity. This was something else. Something darker and deeper and more complicated. This is insane, I whispered. Probably. I don't even know your name. Luca, he said. Luca Santoro. I shook my head slowly, trying to process this. Trying to find the catch. There was always a catch. Why? I asked again. Please. I need to understand why. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant, like he was looking at something I couldn't see. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because someone once did this for me. And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to do it for someone else, I would. I felt tears prick at my eyes and blinked them away furiously. I couldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of this stranger who was offering me the impossible. I can't pay you back, I said. Not for a long time. Maybe not ever. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? He smiled, just a little, and it transformed his face. Made him look younger. Less intimidating. Let me help. That's all. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away. This didn't happen. People didn't just offer to pay for strangers' surgeries. There had to be a catch. Had to be strings attached. Had to be something wrong with this picture. But I thought about Sophie. About how she'd been so brave when the doctor explained what was wrong with her heart. About how she'd held my hand and told me it was okay, that she wasn't scared. About how she'd cried herself to sleep last week when she couldn't go to her friend's birthday party at the trampoline park because it wasn't safe. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay. Luca nodded once, like this was settled. Like he'd just decided to help me buy groceries, not pay for a surgery that would change my daughter's life. Give me your number, he said, pulling out his phone. I'll have my assistant contact the hospital today. The surgery will go forward as planned. My hands were shaking as I took his phone and typed in my number. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of fever dream. I'm Claire, I said, handing the phone back. Claire Mitchell. Claire. He said my name like he was testing it. Your daughter's name is Sophie. Yes. She's 7. My voice cracked. She's everything. I'm sure she is. He slipped his phone back into his pocket. You'll hear from the hospital within the hour. Everything will be taken care of. I don't know how to thank you. You just did. He turned to walk away, and panic seized me. This man was about to disappear, and I still didn't understand what had just happened. Didn't understand who he was or why he'd done this or if I'd ever see him again. Luca, I called after him. He stopped, turned back. Why are you really doing this? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my daughter needed surgery once. Someone helped us when we had nothing. When I had nothing. I never got to thank them. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my chest ache. Grief. Loss. Consider this my way of paying it forward. Before I could respond, he was gone, disappearing around the corner toward the elevators. I stood there in the corridor, alone again, wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. My phone rang 20 minutes later. It was the hospital. The surgery was back on. Everything was paid for. They apologized for any confusion and assured me Sophie would receive the best possible care. I sat in my car in the parking garage and cried. Big, gasping sobs that I'd been holding back for months. Years, maybe. I cried for Sophie, for the fear I'd been living with. I cried for myself, for how hard I'd been trying and how close I'd come to breaking. I cried because for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe things were going to be okay. I didn't know anything about Luca Santoro. Didn't know what he did for a living or where he lived or if I'd ever see him again. All I knew was that a stranger had saved my daughter's life, and I would spend the rest of mine wondering how I could ever repay him. I called my neighbor and told her I'd be late picking up Sophie. Then I drove to the cemetery where my mother was buried and told her everything. Told her I was scared and grateful and confused and that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be different now. The surgery was scheduled for Friday at 7 a.m. 2 days away. 2 days that felt like an eternity and like no time at all. I didn't hear from Luca again before the surgery. Part of me wondered if I ever would. If he made a habit of this, swooping in, changing lives, disappearing. If I was just one of many charity cases in his orbit. But I couldn't focus on that. I had to focus on Sophie. On preparing her, on staying calm, on being the mother she needed me to be. The night before the surgery, Sophie was quiet. We were sitting on our worn couch in our tiny apartment, one bedroom that we shared, a kitchen barely big enough for both of us to stand in at the same time, and a living room dominated by the couch and the small TV I'd gotten at a garage sale. But it was ours. We were safe here. Mom. Sophie said, her voice small. She was curled up against me, her head on my shoulder. She was tiny for 7, all long limbs and big hazel eyes and straight blonde hair that she'd gotten from her father. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you scared? I thought about lying. About telling her no, everything was fine, nothing to worry about. But Sophie was smart. She deserved the truth. A little, I admitted. But I'm more excited. Because after this, your heart is going to work better. You'll be able to run and play and do all the things other kids do. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep. You won't feel anything. She was quiet for a minute, her fingers playing with the hem of my shirt. Why did you cancel it before? My heart stopped. What? Mrs. Patterson told me. She said you came home crying and that the surgery was cancelled. But then you said it was back on again. She looked up at me with those impossibly wise eyes. Why? I thought Sophie didn't know. Thought I'd protected her from that. But of course she knew. She always knew when I was struggling, no matter how hard I tried to hide it. Money stuff, I said carefully. But someone helped us. Someone very kind helped us, and now everything is okay. Who? Just, a good person. Someone who wanted to help. Sophie nodded slowly, processing this. When I grow up, I'm going to help people too. Like they helped us. My throat tightened. I know you will, sweetheart. I know you will. We fell asleep like that, curled up on the couch, and I dreamed of hospitals and strangers with dark eyes and futures that seemed suddenly, impossibly within reach. The next morning, we were at the hospital by 5:30. The pre-op area was bright and cold, full of beeping machines and busy nurses. Sophie was brave, braver than I was. She held my hand while they did the 4, only squeezing a little when the needle went in. You're doing great, I told her, brushing her hair back from her forehead. I'm so proud of you. I love you, Mom. I love you too. So much. They wheeled her away at 7:15, and I watched until she disappeared through the double doors. Then I found the waiting room and sat down in one of those terrible plastic chairs and waited. And waited. The surgery was supposed to take 4 to 6 hours. I watched the clock. Counted the minutes. Tried to read a magazine but couldn't focus on the words. Got coffee from the machine in the hallway and didn't drink it. At 10:30, someone sat down next to me. They told me this room has the best terrible coffee. I looked up, startled. Luca Santoro was sitting beside me, 2 cups in his hands. He offered me one. What are you doing here? I asked. I had some business at the hospital this morning. Thought I'd check in. See how Sophie was doing. He was wearing jeans today, and a black sweater. Still expensive, I was sure, but more normal. More human. He looked tired, I realized. There were shadows under his eyes, and his hair was slightly mushed, like he'd been running his hands through it. She went in a few hours ago, I said, taking the coffee. They said 4 to 6 hours. I'm trying not to watch the clock. That never works. No, I agreed. It doesn't. We sat in silence for a minute. It should have been awkward, sitting next to this stranger who'd paid for my daughter's surgery. But somehow it wasn't. Business at the hospital. I asked, curious despite myself. His jaw tightened slightly. Just visiting someone. A family matter. There was something in his voice that told me not to push. A door closing. But I saw something in his eyes, that same grief, that same weight I'd seen in the corridor 2 days ago. I'm sorry, I said, not sure what I was apologizing for, just knowing he needed to hear it. Don't be. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Some days are harder than others. We talked for hours after that. About everything and nothing. He asked about Sophie, what she liked, what she wanted to be when she grew up, how I managed to stay so strong. I asked about his work, though he was vague about the details. Restaurants, he said. Import-export. Real estate. I didn't press. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me was afraid that if I looked too closely at this gift I'd been given, it would disappear. At 2 p.m., a doctor in scrubs came into the waiting room. Mitchell family. I jumped up so fast I almost knocked over my coffee. Luca stood too, his hand briefly touching my lower back, steadying me. That's me, I said. How is she? The doctor smiled. The surgery went very well. Sophie did great. We're moving her to recovery now, and you should be able to see her in about 30 minutes. Relief crashed over me so hard my knees went weak. Luca's hand was there again, solid and sure, holding me up. She's okay. I managed. She's perfect. The ablation was successful. We'll need to monitor her for a couple days, but I expect a full recovery. I was crying. Didn't even realize it until Luca pressed a tissue into my hand. Thank you, I told the doctor. Thank you so much. When the doctor left, I turned to Luca, and before I could think better of it, I hugged him. Just threw my arms around him and held on tight. He went rigid for half a second, surprised. Then his arms came around me, careful and gentle, and he let me cry into his expensive sweater. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for giving her this. Thank you for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. When I pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Can I tell you something? He asked. Anything. You helped me too. That day in the corridor. I'd been sitting there in a very dark place, wondering about things I shouldn't have been wondering about. And then I heard you, and I remembered why any of this matters. I don't understand. You don't have to. Just know that meeting you, helping Sophie, it gave me something I needed too. A nurse came to get me then, said Sophie was awake and asking for me. Luca walked me to the recovery area, and at the door, he stopped. I should go. I have someone waiting for me upstairs. Luca, I said, catching his hand. Will I see you again? He looked at our joined hands, then at me. Something flickered in his expression, want, fear, hope. Do you want to? Yes, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Yes, I do. Then you will. He left, and I went to see my daughter, who was groggy but smiling, and I told her how much I loved her and how everything was going to be different now. I didn't know how different. Sophie stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Luca came by every afternoon, always with a reason. He was visiting someone upstairs, he had a meeting with hospital administration, he happened to be in the area. But he always ended up in our room, talking to Sophie, making her laugh, bringing her books and stuffed animals. She adored him instantly. Asked when Mr. Luca was coming back. Told me she liked his smile. He's nice, Mom, she said on the second day. And he's sad like you sometimes. What do you mean, sweetheart? His eyes get sad. Like yours do when you think I'm not looking. Out of the mouths of babes. My 7-year-old had seen right through both of us. On the 3rd day, Sophie was discharged. Luca had arranged for a car service to take us home. I'd protested, but he'd insisted, and I was too tired to argue. When we got to our apartment building, he was there, waiting. I wanted to make sure you got home safe, he said. Sophie ran to him, as much as she could run, still moving slowly, and hugged his legs. Thank you for the books. He crouched down to her level, his whole face softening. You're welcome, Piccola. You rest now, okay? Get strong. I will. She looked between us, then at me. Mom, can Mr. Luca come for dinner sometime? I froze. Luca's eyes met mine, amused. We'll see, sweetheart, I said. Mr. Luca is very busy. Not too busy for dinner, he said. If your mom says yes. Sophie looked at me with those huge hopeful eyes, and I knew I was beat. Okay, I said. Dinner sometime. Sophie cheered, and Luca grinned, and I wondered what I'd just gotten myself into. He came for dinner the following Friday. I'd stressed about it all week, what to make, how to clean our tiny apartment, what to wear. In the end, I made spaghetti and meatballs because it was Sophie's favorite and the only thing I was really confident I wouldn't mess up, wore jeans and a nice sweater, and cleaned until my hands were raw. Luca arrived at 6 with flowers, sunflowers, cheerful and bright, and wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. You didn't have to do that, I said, taking the flowers. I wanted to. Sophie was already dragging him to the couch to show him her drawing from school. He sat and listened patiently while she explained in great detail why she'd made the ocean pink instead of blue. I watched them from the kitchen while I finished cooking, and something in my chest felt tight. Travis had never done this. Never sat with Sophie and actually listened. Never looked at her like she was fascinating. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Sophie talked non-stop, told every story she could think of. Luca asked questions, engaged with her like she was the most interesting person in the world. He helped clear the table, insisted on doing dishes despite my protests. After Sophie went to bed, we sat on the couch with our wine, and for the first time since he'd walked into my life, we were alone. She's wonderful, Luca said. You've done an amazing job with her. I'm doing my best. That's all any of us can do, right? She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. I took a sip of wine, gathering courage. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask me anything. Sophie's father, where is he? Luca's expression darkened. That's what I was going to ask you. Forgive me for being direct, but I've noticed you never mention him. And Sophie doesn't talk about him either. I looked down at my wine glass. Travis left when Sophie was 4. Said being a father was too hard. Said he didn't sign up for this. I laughed bitterly. As if having a child is something you can return if it's not what you expected. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off without him. I paused. He doesn't pay child support. Doesn't call. Doesn't send birthday cards. Sophie asks about him sometimes, and I don't know what to say. You tell her the truth. That some people don't know how to be what others need. And that it's not her fault. Something in his voice made me look up. You sound like you've said that before. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wine glass. I have a daughter, he said finally. Isabella. She's 11. My heart stopped. You have a daughter. Yes. He looked at me then, and the pain in his eyes was almost unbearable. She's sick. Very sick. That's why I'm at the hospital so much. Luca. Cancer. Leukemia. We've been fighting it for 8 months now. His voice was flat, carefully controlled, like if he let any emotion in it would break him. Some days are good. Some days are not. I'm so sorry. Is her mother gone? She passed away 6 years ago. Different kind of cancer. We couldn't afford treatment then. By the time we could, it was too late. He set his wine down, his hands shaking slightly. I watched her die because I didn't have money. Because I couldn't save her. The pieces were starting to fall into place. Why he'd helped me. Why he'd been sitting in that corridor looking so devastated. Is that why you helped Sophie? Because of your wife? Partly. He turned to face me fully. I was sitting in that corridor taking a break from watching my daughter fight for her life, and I heard you canceling your daughter's surgery for the same reason I lost my wife. Because you didn't have money. He reached out, touched my face gently. And I realized that if I couldn't save my wife, if I can't control what happens to Isabella, at least I could do this one thing. Save one person. Help one child. I was crying again. You're a good man, Luca Santoro. I'm not. But I'm trying to be. Can I meet her? Isabella. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe. You'd want to. Of course I would. If you think she'd be okay with it. She's been asking about you. About Sophie. She knows I helped with the surgery. He smiled softly. She told me I did good. She's right. We sat there for a long moment, the air between us charged with something I couldn't name. Then Luca leaned forward, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. He kissed me soft and gentle, like I was something precious. Something that might break. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. I want to be honest with you, Claire. Okay. My life is complicated. The work I do, it's not always clean. Not always legal. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I mean that I've done things. Things I'm not proud of. Things that might scare you if you knew. Are you in danger? Sometimes. Could Sophie and I be in danger? If we're around you. He pulled back, his jaw tight. I would never let anything happen to you. Either of you. But yes, my world can be dangerous. I should have been terrified. Should have told him to leave and never come back. Should have protected my daughter from whatever dark things he was involved in. But I looked at him, at this man who'd saved my daughter's life, who was fighting to save his own daughter, who'd shown us nothing but kindness, and I couldn't walk away. I need you to be honest with me, I said. Always. If there's danger, if there's something I need to know to keep Sophie safe, you tell me. Can you do that? Yes. Then I'm willing to take this risk. Whatever this is. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt something in me that had been frozen for years start to thaw. Luca left around midnight, and I went to bed feeling like my life had just shifted on its axis. I woke up Saturday morning to someone pounding on my door. I hurried to answer it before the noise woke Sophie, my heart already racing. Nothing good ever came from someone pounding on your door at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. 2 men in suits stood in my hallway. Not friendly suits like Luca wore. These were government suits. Federal suits. Claire Mitchell, the taller one asked. Yes. He held up a badge. I'm Agent Brennan. This is Agent Kim. We need to talk to you about Luca Santoro. My stomach dropped. What about him? Can we come in? I glanced back at Sophie's sleeping form on the couch, we'd fallen asleep watching movies, and shook my head. No. We can talk out here. Agent Brennan nodded. Miss Mitchell, how long have you known Mr. Santoro? About a week. Why? What's this about? The agents exchanged a look. What do you know about his business? Agent Kim asked. He owns restaurants. Import-export. Real estate. Why are you asking me this? Because Luca Santoro is not who you think he is, Brennan said. He's the head of one of the largest organized crime families in the city. The hallway tilted. I reached out to steady myself against the doorframe. You're lying. I'm afraid not. Agent Kim pulled out a folder, showed me photographs. Luca getting out of expensive cars. Luca with men I didn't recognize. Luca in what looked like surveillance photos. He runs everything from illegal gambling operations to money laundering to extortion. The restaurants are legitimate, but they're a front for his other activities. I stared at the photos, my mind reeling. This couldn't be real. Why are you telling me this? Because we need your help, Brennan said. We've been investigating Santoro for 3 years, but we can't get close enough to build a case. But you You have access to him. He trusts you. You want me to spy on him. We want you to help us put a dangerous criminal behind bars where he belongs. He saved my daughter's life, I said, my voice shaking. With illegal money, Kim said. Everything he has, everything he's given you, it comes from crime. From hurting people. Get out. Miss Mitchell. Get out. Now. Or I'm calling the police. We are the police, Brennan said. And you need to think very carefully about what you're doing. Getting involved with a man like Santoro, it puts you and your daughter at risk. The only people putting us at risk right now are you two. Leave. They exchanged another look, then Brennan pulled out a business card and set it on the floor by my feet. When you're ready to do the right thing, call us. They left, and I stood there in the hallway, staring at that card, my whole world crumbling around me. Organized crime. Illegal activities. A dangerous criminal. Was any of it true? Or were they lying, trying to manipulate me into betraying someone who'd shown me nothing but kindness? I picked up the card and went inside, my hands shaking. Sophie was awake, sitting on the couch, rubbing her eyes. Who was at the door, Mom? Nobody, sweetheart. Just some people selling something. She accepted this without question and went back to her cartoons. I sat down next to her, that business card burning a hole in my pocket, and tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do now. My phone buzzed. A text from Luca. Asterisk good morning. Isabella wants to know if you and Sophie would like to visit her today. No pressure, but she's having a good day and she'd love to meet you both, asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time. Was he a monster? A criminal who hurt people? Or was he just a man trying to save his daughter, the same way I was trying to save mine? I thought about the way he'd looked at Sophie. The way he'd talked about Isabella. The grief in his eyes when he talked about his wife. I texted back. Asterisk we'd love to. What time, asterisk? His response came immediately. Asterisk around 2. I'll pick you up, asterisk. I knew I was probably making a mistake. Knew I should call those agents back, ask more questions, protect myself and Sophie. But I'd been protecting myself for 3 years, and where had it gotten me? Alone. Struggling. Canceling my daughter's surgery. Luca had given me hope when I had none. He'd saved Sophie's life without asking for anything in return. I wasn't ready to believe he was a monster. Not yet. At 2 p.m. sharp, a black car pulled up outside my building. Not flashy, but expensive. The kind of car that whispered money rather than shouted it. Luca got out and opened the door for us. He was wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater, and when he smiled at Sophie, his whole face lit up. Ready to meet Isabella? He asked her. Sophie nodded shyly, suddenly quiet. She was holding her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one with the torn ear that she'd had since she was 3. She's going to love you, Luca said, helping her into the car. Then he looked at me, and something in his expression shifted. Are you okay? Fine, I lied. He didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. But he didn't push. The drive to the hospital was quiet. Sophie chattered nervously about what she should say to Isabella, and Luca answered her patiently, but I could feel him watching me in the rearview mirror. He knew something was wrong. Isabella was in a private room on the pediatric oncology floor. The walls were painted bright colors, covered in drawings and get-well cards. There was a window with a view of the city, and the afternoon light streaming through made everything look softer. Gentler. She was in bed, propped up with pillows, wearing a pink hoodie that was too big for her. She was beautiful, long dark hair, huge brown eyes, delicate features. She looked like Luca. But she was so thin. So fragile. Papa, she said when she saw us, her face lighting up. Then she saw Sophie and me, and she smiled wider. You came. Of course we came, Luca said, moving to her bedside and kissing her forehead. Isabella, this is Claire and Sophie. Hi, Sophie said softly, suddenly shy again. Hi. Isabella patted the bed next to her. Come sit with me. Do you like unicorns? I have a book about unicorns. Just like that, the ice was broken. Within 5 minutes, the two girls were deep in conversation about unicorns and princesses and their favorite colors. Sophie's rabbit was introduced and approved of. Isabella's stuffed bear was presented in return. I watched them, my throat tight, and felt Luca's hand slip into mine. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. She's wonderful. She is. His voice was rough. She's everything. We stood there watching our daughters become friends, and I felt something shift inside me. Whatever Luca was, whatever he'd done, he was a father who loved his child. Just like I was a mother who loved mine. That had to count for something. After an hour, Isabella started to look tired. Luca noticed immediately, gently suggesting that maybe they should rest. But I want to keep playing, Isabella protested, even as her eyes drooped. We'll come back, Sophie said quickly. If that's okay. We can play again. Really? Isabella's face lit up. Really, I said, making the decision in that moment. We'd love to visit again. Luca walked us out, and in the hallway, he caught my arm. What happened? He asked. You've been quiet all afternoon. I looked at him, at this man who might be everything the FBI said he was, or might be something else entirely, and made a choice. Some federal agents came to see me this morning. His expression went completely blank. Carefully neutral. What did they say? They said you're the head of an organized crime family. That you're a criminal. That everything you have comes from illegal activities. I stepped closer. They asked me to spy on you. To help them build a case. And what did you tell them? I told them to leave. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or surprise. Why? Because you saved my daughter's life. Because you've been nothing but kind to us. Because, I stopped, took a breath. Because I wanted to hear your side first. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, walk with me. We left Sophie with Isabella's nurse, a kind woman named Rosa who'd been with them for months, and Luca led me to a quiet corner of the hospital, near a window overlooking the city. I'm not going to lie to you, he said finally. Most of what they told you is true. My heart sank. I run an organization. We handle various business interests. Some legal, some not. I've done things I'm not proud of. Hurt people who probably deserved it and some who didn't. He turned to face me, his eyes dark and intense. But I have rules. Lines I don't cross. I don't hurt innocents. Don't traffic drugs. Don't exploit the vulnerable. That's supposed to make it okay. No. Nothing makes it okay. He ran a hand through his hair. After my wife died, I was angry. Furious at a world that would take her because we were poor. Because we didn't matter. So I built something where I did matter. Where I had power. Where I could make sure Isabella would never go without. By becoming a criminal. Yes. At least he wasn't lying. At least he was being honest. The money for Sophie's surgery, was it illegal? Does it matter? Yes, I said. It matters to me. He sighed. It came from my restaurants. Legitimate income. I wouldn't, he stopped. I wouldn't taint something good with dirty money. Not that. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. The FBI wants me to help them arrest you. I know. You're not surprised. They've been circling for years. It was only a matter of time before they tried to use someone close to me. He looked at me. I'll understand if you do it. If you help them. I won't hold it against you. Won't you? You have to protect Sophie. I get that. I'd do anything to protect Isabella. Including letting them arrest you. If it kept you and Sophie safe. Yes. I stared at him, this complicated, dangerous man who'd somehow become important to me in just over a week. I'm not going to help them, I said. Claire. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. If there's danger, if something happens that could put Sophie at risk, you tell me. Immediately. And we walk away. No questions, no arguments. You let us go. He looked like I'd punched him. You think I'd put you in danger? I think your life is dangerous. I think the FBI is watching you. I think being around you could get complicated. I moved closer. But I also think you're a good man in a bad situation. And I stopped, surprised by what I was about to say. I think I care about you. You shouldn't. Probably not. But I do. He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair. I'll keep you safe. Both of you. I promise. I'm holding you to that. We stood there for a long moment, holding each other in that quiet hospital corridor, and I knew I was in too deep to turn back now. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Sophie's recovery progressed beautifully. She was running again, playing again, being a normal kid. I worked my shifts at the restaurant. Luca came for dinner twice a week. We visited Isabella every few days, watching our daughters become real friends. The FBI called twice more. I didn't answer. I was falling for Luca. Falling hard and fast and probably stupidly. But I couldn't help it. He was attentive and thoughtful and made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. But there were signs of his other life. The phone calls he took in another room. The nights he couldn't stay because of business. The way men would approach him on the street and speak in low, urgent tones. I ignored them. Told myself it didn't matter. Until the night it did. It was a Thursday, almost midnight. I was asleep when my phone rang. Luca's name on the screen. Hello. Claire. His voice was tight. Controlled. I need you to listen very carefully. Don't panic. My heart stopped. What's wrong? There are 2 men in a black SUV parked across from your building. They've been there for 3 hours. They're watching your apartment. I got out of bed, moved to the window, careful to stay hidden. He was right. There was an SUV, windows tinted, engine running. Who are they? I don't know yet. Could be FBI. Could be, he stopped. Could be something else. Something else. I have enemies, Claire. People who might use you to get to me. Fear flooded through me, cold and sharp. Sophie. Is fine. You're both fine. I have people watching them. But I need you to pack a bag. Just essentials. Be ready to leave. Leave. Luca, what's happening? I'm handling it. Just be ready. I'll call you back in an hour. He hung up. I stood there in the dark, my phone in my shaking hand, staring at that SUV, and reality crashed over me. This was my life now. This was what I'd chosen. I packed a bag with shaking hands. Sophie's clothes, her medications, her rabbit. My laptop, our documents, cash I'd hidden for emergencies. 45 minutes later, my phone rang again. It's okay, Luca said. They're gone. Who were they? FBI. Running surveillance. They're not a threat. Not a threat. They were watching my apartment. I know. I'm sorry. He sighed heavily. This is my fault. I brought this to your door. What do we do? Nothing tonight. But Claire, he paused. Maybe you should take Sophie and go somewhere for a while. Just until this settles down. You want us to leave. I want you safe. I closed my eyes. This was it. The moment where I had to choose. Stay and risk everything, or go and lose him. No, I said. No. I'm not running. Not from them. Not from this. But you have to help me understand, Luca. All of it. No more secrets. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, come to my house tomorrow. Bring Sophie. We'll talk. I'll tell you everything. 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 The next day, Luca sent a car for us. Not the usual one, this was bigger, with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he could break someone in half. Sophie noticed. Why is the car different? Mr. Luca just wanted to make sure we got there safely, I said, hoping she couldn't hear the fear in my voice. His house was not what I expected. I'd imagined something flashy, ostentatious. Instead, it was a beautiful old brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. Elegant but not showy. Trees lined the street. Kids were playing in a yard down the block. Luca met us at the door. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept. Come in, he said. The inside was warm and comfortable. Dark wood floors, soft lighting, furniture that was clearly expensive but looked lived in. There were photos everywhere, Isabella at different ages, always smiling. A few of a woman I assumed was his wife. Isabella's upstairs, Luca said to Sophie. Rose is with her. They're waiting for you. Sophie bounded up the stairs, and then it was just us. You have a beautiful home, I said. Thank you. He led me to the kitchen, poured us both coffee. I need to tell you some things. Things that might change how you see me. Okay. He took a breath. My organization controls most of the gambling, loan operations, and protection services in the eastern part of the city. We also handle money for other groups, laundering, mostly. It's how I make most of my money. I nodded, my coffee cup warm in my hands. I took over the business from my father-in-law after my wife died. He gave me a choice, work for him or watch Isabella starve. So I worked. And I was good at it. Too good. He looked at me. I've hurt people, Claire. Put men in hospitals. Made threats I meant. Destroyed lives. Have you killed anyone? Not directly. But I've ordered it done. 3 times. All 3 were men who hurt children. Who trafficked or abused or killed innocents. I should have been horrified. Should have grabbed Sophie and run. But I wasn't. Because I believed him about his lines. About his rules. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're getting into. Because if you stay, if you choose this, you need to understand the risks. He moved closer. The FBI isn't going to stop. My enemies aren't going to stop. This life, it's dangerous. Complicated. And I can't promise you won't get hurt. But you'll try to protect us. With everything I have. I set down my coffee cup. I'm scared, Luca. You should be. But I'm not leaving. Why not? Because my daughter has a friend who makes her smile. Because you make me feel alive for the first time in years. Because, I laughed shakily. Because I think I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me more than anything else. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, and I knew there was no going back. We spent the afternoon there, all 4 of us. The girls played while Luca and I talked about logistics. About safety protocols. About what would happen if things went bad. I have a safe house, he said. Outside the city. If there's ever immediate danger, you go there. My men know to protect you. Your men. The people who work for me. They know you and Sophie are important to me. They'll die before they let anything happen to you. It should have sounded crazy. It should have sent me running. But instead, it made me feel safe. That night, after we'd gone home, after Sophie was asleep, Luca called. Are you sure about this? He asked. Last chance to walk away. I'm sure. I love you, he said quietly. I didn't plan to. Didn't want to. But I do. I love you too. Then we'll make this work. Somehow. 2 months later, Isabella's cancer went into remission. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Luca cried when he told me, and I held him while he shook with relief. The FBI eventually gave up on recruiting me. Moved on to other targets, other cases. Life wasn't perfect. There were still late-night calls, still business I didn't ask about. But there was also Sunday dinners with all four of us, movie nights, trips to the park. Sophie called Luca, but said he was like a dad. Isabella called me Miss Claire and asked when we were going to be sisters. 6 months after that first day in the hospital corridor, Luca asked me to marry him. We were in his kitchen, just the two of us, the girls asleep upstairs. No fancy restaurant, no grand gesture. Just him, on one knee, with his grandmother's ring. I know this life isn't easy, he said. I know I come with complications and danger and a past I can't erase. But I love you. And Sophie. And I want us to be a family. Really a family. I said yes before he finished talking. We got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, just family and a few close friends. Isabella was the flower girl. Sophie was the maid of honor. The FBI sent an agent to watch from across the street. Luca's enemies probably did too. But when I walked down that aisle and saw him waiting for me, saw the man who'd saved my daughter's life, who'd given us hope when we had none, who'd chosen us despite every reason not to, I knew I'd made the right choice. Life isn't a fairy tale. Luca's work is still dangerous. I still worry every time he leaves for business. The FBI still watches us. His enemies still exist in the shadows. But we have each other. We have our daughters, healthy and happy. We have Sunday dinners and movie nights and normal moments in between the chaos. And when Sophie asks me how I met Luca, I tell her the truth. I tell her about the worst day of my life, when I had to cancel her surgery. About how a stranger overheard and did the unthinkable. About how sometimes, the people who save us aren't the ones we expect. About how love finds you in the most impossible places, if you're brave enough to let it in. This was a fictional story. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to Benny's Romance Stories for more dark romance daily. Comment what you thought or what story you want next. See you in the next one.